So, dreams. I'm not particularly sure exactly what dreams are supposed to be. Are they magical? Are they sort of a bonus? Simply the product of neurological system maintenance? Are they the subconscious mind attempting to communicate with our conscious mind? Are they sort of a virtual reality training program that the brain simply runs at night because it's the most opportune time? Given the complex nature of the human brain, I am inclined to think that it could be at least all of these things. For myself, I frequently remember my dreams, if only for a short time. Most often, I awake and, unless there's something particularly striking about the dream, I tend to forget it. It evaporates from my memory. And I occasionally seem to have almost prophetic dreams. I say almost because it's not as if I actually have a dream and then awake and think, I've just seen into the future. What usually happens is I am going about my business. I'm struck by the sensation similar to deja vu. And I realize, no, I have in fact dreamt this. To my recollection, this has afforded me no practical advantage. Typically, it's just a remarkable experience, but nothing more. I also frequently have lucid dreams, and these tend to fall into two broad categories. On the one hand, I become aware of the dream while dreaming, but simply observe the fact that I'm dreaming. But I don't really take any action. This usually serves to alleviate fear during an unpleasant portion of a dream. On the other hand, I take full omnipotent control of the dream. When I was very young, I started running really, really fast, and then flying, soaring over various landscapes, or swimming deeply into the sea. At a certain point, the omnipotence reflected my adolescent preoccupation with sexuality. I imagine that's pretty common. But as I got older, I realized that in my dreams, the lucid ones anyway, I was godlike. A common, reoccurring set of circumstances has to do with places I've lived and people I've known. In a recent dream, I was walking down a corridor that vaguely resembled the hallway in the flat where I currently reside, with some somewhat surrealistic modifications, such as one of the doorways that, truthfully, doesn't correspond to one in the hallway in reality. But this extra doorway led to a oddly parallel corridor, taking me to the front walk of a house that my grandmother lived in. And for a brief time, as a young adult, I lived with her there. And I went up the walk and into the front door, encountering an array of rooms somewhat resembling those of the house that she had lived in, but in an odd, modular, Lego-like fashion, had mutated to include aspects of a live-work artist warehouse space I lived in West Oakland some 15 years later. But inside, I encountered my grandmother and her sister, my great aunt, who appeared to both be dead, and appearing to me in the form of shades, much like I imagine the characters to be from the Odyssey by Homer. And after some unusual conversation, including some nostalgia and, well, frankly, weird things that I don't remember well, and I think just didn't make much sense. But at one point, they warned me of an impending danger and urged me to retreat back outside through the original corridor that represented the flat I currently live in, all the way outside Oddly enough, the outside did not resemble modern urban San Francisco, but the outside of the house I had shared with her so many years ago, except for there were suspended vehicular roadways and flying vehicles resembling some sort of fusion between Blade Runner and the Jetsons. It seems that apparently there was a great panic because Earth was about to be invaded. And these obviously extraterrestrial vehicles came upon the scene, and instead of using ray guns or some projectile shooting from their vessels, they seemed to control meteors or meteorites, willing them to land at various targets here on Earth, outside my grandmother's home. In a moment of panic, I realized that I was dreaming, and thus could affect the outcome of the apparent impending conflict. So, for a brief moment, I flew around a bit like a superhero, doing battle with the falling meteorites. And then I realized, wait, I could simply will rock formations, much like those seen in deserts, simply rising sheer out of the desert floor. I willed these large rock formations to strategically rise up, blocking the meteorites. And then I remembered that I was in total control, and I simply willed lives away. And then found myself quickly rising and orbiting the Earth, observing it in a way that was reminiscent of photos and video I had seen online from NASA. And then realizing that I was still in a dream, and this wasn't actually the Earth, I began to play with it, creating continents and mountain ranges, changing its size and shape, and ultimately distance and proportion to the sun. The entire solar system was, to my perspective,